Let's take a look at a diagnosis of a design. And so here's the original design, the sketches for a revised design, and then the new design. So we'll look at the original first. So I look at this, and the first thing that I notice is that sketch number 1 is not fully defined, and I can tell that because of this minus symbol in parentheses. And if I go down through, I see other sketches that are not fully defined. And I'll look at the geometry a little bit, and so I see that this piece right here is not centered. In fact, it's hanging off the edge over here, and I would expect from experience that this would be centered on this arm. And if I go around, I see this one's hanging off the edge, but I see this one isn't hanging off the edge, so this one is more centered, and this one, so we look at this, it looks all symmetrical here, but I look at this one, it's not hanging off the edge, but it's thinner on this side than it is over on this side. So I would expect all of these to be centered and all of them to be symmetrical. I look at this and I see this line up here, and so I zoom in and I see that this is hanging off the edge right there, and also over on this side where here it's a smooth plane all the way down. So I see issues like that, and I have to wonder, I'm not sure how somebody could miss an issue like this hanging over the edge, or an issue like this being thinner on one side here than it is over here. I just don't quite understand how an issue like that could be missed. But I'll go back and I'll edit the sketch number 1, and I see that there are a lot of blue lines on sketch number 1, so it's not fully defined. And if I start dragging any geometry, I see that it goes anywhere, and so you could accidentally move something. Now I moved it a lot, so it's pretty obvious, but you could accidentally move something just a little bit, and then it wouldn't be obvious that you had accidentally moved it. I also see a bunch of points in here that I don't really understand the function of all of those points. It appears that there is a line underneath of this line. Those things tend to cause issues. I don't see any indication of what the angle is for this arm. If I go ahead and dimension, say from this line to this line, or one of those, I see that it's 44.97. I suspect that it was probably intended to be 45 degrees. I mean, that would round off to 45 degrees, but it's not dimensioned as such, and it isn't as such. That when we dimension it, we see that it isn't 45 degrees. So all kinds of various issues where if I were going to manufacture this, what size would I make this hole? There's no dimension on here indicating to me what size to make that hole. So we should fully define our sketches, fully define our geometry, use symmetry where possible. So let's look at the next design. Actually, let's look at the sketches first, and then I'll look at the new design. So on this, I've created 3 sketches. Now, it would probably be best for a beginner to break these sketches up into more sketches to make them more simple. So if I edit this first sketch, it'd probably be best to maybe put this on a separate sketch, and this on a separate sketch, and maybe this on a separate sketch. But anyways, I have sketched a bunch of the geometry, and notice it's all black, and down here it says it's fully defined. If I change any dimension, let's say I really intended that to be 100, then the model would update without breaking. And so everything would, all the behavior would behave as expected. A robust model with no unexpected behavior. I'm going to put that back to where it was. And so that was sketch number 1. And let me drag this over here a little bit. And I'm going to hide sketch number 1 and I'll hide sketch number 2 or 3. So there's sketch number 2. Now I could probably do this a little bit more simply than I did, but I don't know, it's just a bunch of straight lines, so it isn't too complicated. And if I edit that sketch, so 4 dimensions on here to dimension this sketch, and it's all black, it's all fully defined. And I'll go to sketch number 3. Sketch number 3, if I edit that sketch, and again, you might break this sketch up into 2 or 3 separate sketches instead of one sketch. But sketch number 3 is mostly based off of sketch number 1, and so there's only one dimension on sketch number 3. So everything else would update on this sketch based on any changes made to sketch number 1. And then we'll look at the part, and so here is the new part. Again, everything is symmetrical here. If I change any dimensions within reason, the model should update without going sick.